Okay, welcome to another video. We are going to do a full walkthrough, and the paper I have selected is the January 2023 paper. So as always, it's important, crucial, essential, critical, whatever word you want to throw in there, to understand the scenario for the database that you're going to create. If you don't understand why they need the database and how they're going to use it, it's going to impact your ability to do all your activities. You're going to have a hard time reaching that merit, reaching that distinction, if you don't understand the context of how the database is going to be used, right? So we'll quickly read this together. You've been asked to create a database for Martlepool College Ladies Football Club, and the database will record information about the players of the Ladies Football Club, their mentors, and player statistics. Now, you need to understand what player stats are. You don't necessarily need to understand how football is played, but stats, in tennis, in cricket, you have stats. So like in cricket, the amount of overs, the amount of runs, the amount of wickets that, a bowler took, or the average speed of their bowler. In rugby, the amount of tries. In football, the assists, the tackles, the red cards, the yellow cards. These are statistics. So the database is recording information about the players that play for Martlepool College Ladies Football Club, who their mentors are. So in football, in many sports, it's a common practice that athletes will have a mentor that will help them to train. And then you have player stats. So obviously when they play football matches, there will be stats. They might score goals, they might get red cards, yeah? So players are assigned a position, for example, centre forward. Players may be assigned more than one position during their time at the club. Now, I always recommend when you're doing Unit 2, spend a lot of time understanding the scenario. If you want to spend 10 minutes to wrap your head around it, it's good. It's time well invested, in my opinion, because that will set you up. When you start to do activity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you now have a good understanding of what's happening, and everything else you do will be faster and make sense because you understand the scenario. Oh, coincidentally, that's what they advise you to spend over here as well. They advise you to spend 10 minutes, yeah? So players are assigned a mentor. So here, players may be assigned more than one position during the time at the club. That means if they started as a centre forward, another match they might play as a goalkeeper, yeah? So this will be very important when we get to activity 3. Players are assigned a mentor. They stay under the care of that mentor for the entire time at the club. So that means whichever mentor they're assigned, it's not going to change for as long as they're at that club. Stats are recorded about the player for each position they played in. So remember here, I said they may have played centre forward, but another time they might play as a goalkeeper. So we need a way to record the stats when they played as a centre forward, how many goals they saved. When they played as a goalkeeper, how many goals did they stop? How many yellow cards did they get? So they're given ratings. For this rating must be at least 1 and no higher than 5. 1 is the highest rating a player can achieve. Data kept about the player includes their surname and the initial of their first name. The initial must be uppercase. Okay, so the first part is you want to copy the data and you name that table figure 1. So you'd open access, you select blank database, and you select where you're going to save your folder. So I'm saving this as Jan 2023 hyphen part A, and I select on create, and I'm going to name this table TBL figure 1. Then I'll go to design view. So we can do this, yeah? So what you want to do over here, never use auto number when you're doing part A, please. Never use auto number. Part B, that's a different story because that's not up to you. So the first thing that I do is copy the field names, the names of the columns, yeah? So I'll do that quickly. Player ID, player surname, player initial, position ID, yellow cards. I'm shortening this. Position name, player date of birth. Is it clicked in there? It is. Player date of birth, player goals, position goals. Position substitutions, there we go. Enter surname, position, rating. And the last one is the mentor ID. Now, I'm not going to go into depth here about, some of the errors that you need to avoid. There's a video that I did on the errors to avoid for activity 1. You can watch that video. So here, when you're copying the names of the fields, it's important to get this part correct. So now we need to select the data type, not based on what we think it should be, based on the data that they've put for each field inside of each column. So player ID, we can clearly see they've used a number. Surname is short name, player initial, short text. Position ID is a number. Player position yellow cards, that's a number. Player date of birth, this is date and time. You don't need date and time extended because we're not doing anything with hours or minutes. Position goals, that's a number. Substitutions will be a number as well because that's a stat. It helps if you can spell mentor correctly. Mentor surname. Position rating, that's a stat, so that has to be a number. And mentor ID, they've also put a number here. Okay, so I save. So now I go into datasheet view and I'm going to start to copy my data. So is there a way for me to pause this video? Apparently there isn't. It's okay. It is what it is. So I want to see where this field is coming from. Let's open the table again. I don't know where this is coming from. Let's delete it. Save. Open the table. Okay, we're in business. Okay, I like to copy data column by column. Visual Studio OBS used to be good. Yes, you used to have a way to be able to pause recording, but it doesn't now, so it is what it is. So I copy my data column by column. Let's see how long this takes me. I don't think it's going to take me a long time. So Taylor Zhang. You need to copy the data as it is, even that duplicated data, at least when you're doing the figure 1 table. And never delete the figure 1 table, because when things go wrong, you're going to need that data. You're not going to have time to start copying the data all over again. Islam Hernandez. Player initial G R S B K S R S G C K. Position ID, so we've got 7 4 6 5 8 8 2 1. Here we've got 0, here we've got 10 0 4 2 0 7 8 3 9 2. I could have done value lookup here to speed things up, but it's okay. Guys, we need to get comfortable copying out the data and doing this fast. As you can see, I'm talking and doing this at the same time. I'm looking at the time of the recording of the video and I'm still doing quite well for time. It doesn't take too long, but you need to get comfortable doing this fast. This will help you so that you've got enough time to do the other tasks. Center back. Right back. I wonder if people know what my favorite position is. It's always the attacker, isn't it? So is it a winger or is it a striker? Which one do you think it is? Right midfield. So date of birth, 04. Oh, this is gonna be painful. 08/2007. Some students kept asking me what my favorite team is, what team I support. I wonder if they figured it out. Good luck to them. I'm taking my time here. I could type this much faster, but I want to make sure that the data is correct, and just to demonstrate to you that even if you're not going so fast, you can do this part fairly quickly. It shouldn't be something that's taking you about 10 minutes to copy data, or not more than 10 minutes at least. Six 5 0 0 0 2 1 0 1. Right. Substitutions. So 0 0 0 2 1 0 0 1 3 0 2 3. The mental surname. Alarm, burger. If errors are gonna happen, it's gonna be over here, isn't it? Again, there's some mistakes that I said that you should watch out for when you're doing this part. Like if you'd got the data type wrong and you go to change the data type right now whilst you're mid copying your data, unfortunately, when you come back to datasheet view, you're going to see all your data has been rearranged. And it is what it is. You'd have to start all over again. So I told you what you need to do in that video to make sure you don't fall prey to that. Okay, what's happening here? So it's 1 5 1 3 2 1. Oh, there's 2 4s. Yeah, 2 3 2. Am I missing something here? Okay, 2 3 2 4 4 1 2 3. What is going on here? If I got an extra record, this shouldn't be here. Which makes me think all the other records correct. I'll check that at the end. So yep, I think this is where we went wrong. Like I said, if we're gonna go wrong somewhere, I knew it was gonna be here. So alarm, beggar. So beggar, alarm, beggar, alarm. 1 2 3 4. Then alarm comes 2 times. Okay, this is better. 1 5 1 3 2 1 4 4 2 3 2. Better. 1 2 1 1 2 1 1 1 1 2 2. Right, there we go, folks. Even with those things, I think I'm still under 10 minutes copying the data. So now we want to move on to creating the 4 tables. And if you follow my tips, any field names, so we're doing the data normalization, aren't we? So if you follow my tips, any field name or any column name that ends with the name ID, it needs to have its own table and it needs to be a primary key. So here it's very easy to find the 3 tables that you need. You need the player ID table, the position table, and the mentor ID table. So if you read this scenario and you understood the scenario, you understand what the purpose of the player table is. to record details of the football players for Martlepool Ladies Football Club, isn't it? So TBL player. So I'm going to do the creation of the fields last. So TBL position. And then we're going to do TBL mentor, which will store the details of the mentors. Right, so what's the fourth table? Okay, so if I go to the scenario, they always give you the clue. It's either all the field names they give you end with ID, or 4 of them. It's always 4 tables we're looking for, folks. It's either they just give you on the plate, you've got 4 fields that end with the name ID, that's your 4 tables, or they hide one of them in the scenario, yeah? So I said, where they say the database will record information about, those 3 bullet points represent 3 different tables you need to have. So let's start to cancel here. The database will record information about the players. Do I have such a table? Yes, I do. TBL player, that's the purpose of that table. The database will record information about their mentors. Do I have such a table? Yes, I do. TBL mentor. The database will record information about the player statistics. The only table I have left here is the position table. That's not talking about player statistics, is it? So remember, we talked about understanding the scenario, understanding what stats are. So that's our 4th table, a position table. That's not where it records. The position table is there to record that position ID number 7 refers to this position. If it's center forward, for example, it's not about stats. So that's our 4th table. TBL player stats. Fantastic. So let's start copying the field names into the correct tables. So the mentor table, we said it needs to be a primary key. It needs to have its own table. It needs to be a primary key. This is not the correct way to do this. So if you do it this way, you might get a mismatch of your data types with what you selected in the figure 1 table. So the best way to do this is you'd go to your figure 1 table. You look at the fields. You arrange them correctly. So the mentor table, I'm trying to look at what fields need to go in the mentor table. So if I'm recording information about a mentor, these are the only 2 things I need, their ID and their surname. Position rating, what does that have to do with information about a mentor? If I'm a football mentor, what does position rating have to do with me being a mentor? Player date of birth, that's about a player's date of birth. Okay, so these are the only 2 things that we need. So this is the correct way to do it. You copy, you go to the correct table, you go to the destination table, you go to here, you go to paste, and you set this as a primary key. You save this and you close it. So doing it this way, I don't have to remember what was the correct data type, because I already did that on the figure 1 table. Why should I be doing things twice? So we close this table. On the next easiest table, we'll do the position table. Okay, so position table, like I said before. So I'm trying to see position table, what stays consistent with each position ID. I can quickly see when position ID is number 1, the position name is always goalkeeper. Okay, we only have 1 goalkeeper here. But you can see here, position ID 8, the position name is always what? Center forward. So that must mean position ID is there to explain what the player position is. So those are the only 2 things I think we're going to need in this table. Everything else, like the yellow cards, the goals, substitutions, the rating a player got, these are stats. This has nothing to do with the position that the player played in. Yeah, so I copy these 2. I go to the position table. I go to here. I select paste. I set this as my primary key. I save this table. I close this table. And now I go to the player table. So remember, the player table is going to record information about the player. Yeah, about the football players for Martlepool Ladies Football Club. So we need their initial, we need their surname, we need their date of birth. I'll put that after that. Position ID has nothing to do with details about a player. Now, on the scenario, it did say that each player is assigned a mentor during their time at the club. So this is going to be our foreign key. So remember, you should know what a foreign key is. If you don't, you need to watch the other video. Foreign key is the primary key of another table. So remember, we created the mentor table, and the primary key of the mentor table is mentor ID. So if we're adding mentor ID again in the player table, that is what makes it a foreign key, because there's already an ID called mentor ID where it's a primary key in the mentor table. So this is how we're going to link each player to each mentor. So that's why we need this foreign key. So do I need any other foreign keys? Oh, the last two I'll do is the player stats table. So everything that's his stats. Yellow cards, that's a stat. Player position goals, that's a stat. Player position substitutes, that's a stat. Position rating, that's a stat. So if you remember on this scenario, we record the stats for each position that a player has played in. So it's no use having all these stats and they're not linked to anyone. What's the point? What's the point? So we need to get player ID, and we put over here. And I copy these things over. Yes, so if we're recording the stats for the position that they played in, we need the position ID as well, don't we? Oh, I'm not trying to delete. So design view. Now, we're not going to have a primary key in this table. We can't, because player ID is already a primary key in a different table. So it's a foreign key. Position ID, again, it's already a primary key in a different table, so we can't make it a primary key. If you make it a primary key, it's like you've got two different things with the same names, which they're not two different things. It's referring to the same thing. So if a player played as a centre forward, we record the stats. How many yellow cards did they get? How many goals did they get? How many times were they substituted? What was their rating? Yeah? If they play as a goalkeeper, it's the same player ID, we put a different position ID, and we record those stats that they got when they were playing as a goalkeeper. So that's all we need in this table. So if you're doing activity 1, this is all you need to do. And then you create the relationships. You don't need to copy the data, but I'm going to copy the data. But anyway, just to show you that it can work both ways for argument's sake. So I'll put this table in the middle because that's the main table that we're dealing with. I need this one over here, and I need this one over here. So whenever you create relationships, you should always make sure all the tables are closed. You should always tick all these things. If it's not letting you tick all these things, it means something's gone wrong. Yeah, it's usually a good indication. And you should be getting these symbols where it shows the one-to-many relationships. So the infinity symbol, that's the many, and the one obviously means one. So where it says one over here at the top for mentor ID, that's referring to say one mentor can be linked to many players. One player can be linked to many stats. One position can be linked to many stats. So for activity 1, you go to relationship report. You make sure nothing is cutting off like we can see here. We're not trying to save this. So I'll move things a bit closer. I'll do this. I can also do this. Now make sure nothing is cutting out. Okay, I do that. I do that. Give things neat now. There we go. Hopefully that will all be cushed now. There we go, nothing's cutting out. Then you select PDF or XPS, and oh boy, okay, January 2023. And you save the file as it tells you on your instruction paper. So if I go over here, it tells you how you should save your evidence. It should always be as a PDF. So I'm just going to copy this. So activity 1, registration number. I'm just putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I'll put my surname over here. Frosty. And the first letter of my first name is J. Yeah? That's not actually my name, yeah? Then we click publish. Boom, we've done activity 1. Right, so we push it. keep pushing on. So now I'm going to copy my data over. So I go to the figure 1 table. I'll start with the mentor table. So this is the best way, the most efficient way to copy data. You observe the order of your columns in your destination table. So I want to copy data from the figure 1 table into this table. So the destination table is the mentor table. So I want to copy the mentor ID followed by the mentor surname. So in the figure 1 table, I need to arrange the said columns into the same order. So mentor ID is here, where is mentor surname? It's over here. So I click here, I'll move that over here. So I click shift, I select here, I go to copy, and I right click here where you've got this little arrow over here. I right click there, select paste, okay. That's just telling you I can't create duplicates because there's a primary key, which is exactly what we want to do. When we copy the information into the 4 tables that we created, we want to get rid of duplicated information. So that's the mentor table done. Now we can move to the player table. So design view, I'm going to do the player stats table last. So it's player ID, initial surname, player ID, where is player ID? Where art thou? There we go. Player ID, initial surname, date of birth, followed by the mentor ID. Oh, wonderful. So I select the first column, I hold shift on my keyboard, I select the last column, then I let go of the shift and the mouse. I right click here and I select copy. I go here, I right click this little tab. Yeah, fantastic. There we go. I can close this table. So position ID and position name. Okay, there's not much remembering that needs to be done here. Paste. Oh, something's gone wrong here. It's okay. We can just recopy the data. It's not the end of the world, is it? Copy. So maybe I didn't right click that little box properly. Maybe. There we go. So the last table is the player stats table. So we go into design view. We go to view, player ID, position ID, yellow cards. Okay, it's going to be a lot of things to remember here. Position ID, yellow cards. Okay, it's testing me here. Yellow cards, that's goals. Substitution, rating. Okay, so rating is last. Player position goals, substitutions, and we know that the rating is last. Yeah. So I hold shift, select the last column, copy over here, right click this little box here and select paste. Fantastic. So we've copied all our data. So now we can move on to doing activity 2. So I'm going to open this file. The activity 2 template. So they provide you with the activity 2 template file, which you'll see in a moment. So you have your learner files, you have your activity 2, you have your activity 3, and activity 4 template files. Right. So please observe here, add screen prints of each of your tables in design view showing the table name, field names, and data types only. That's the first thing that we need to do when we start activity 2. So I like to do this for preference. You don't have to do this. I like to put a 2x2 table so I can do the screenshots of each of my 4 tables and it all comes on one page. But you don't have to, and you're not going to lose any marks or gain extra marks by doing it this way. So the first table we start off with, you don't need the paste errors table. That's just duplicated information in there. Is the mentor table. So remember this instructions here. Add screenshots of your tables in design view showing the table name, field names, and data types only. So that's all it should show. It shouldn't show all this other blank space over here. This is a fantastic screenshot. Right, and the next table. I like to have one table open at a time when I do this, just to make things clear that this is the table and these are the fields, making it very clear to the person marking, so I'm not, losing any marks, because I'm not about that. And the last table, the position table. So remember, all your evidence that you do for Unit 2, it needs to be saved as a PDF. Yeah, please don't forget this. We've had students before that got 0 marks, where they actually could have got a merit, they got 0 marks, because they forgot to save their Word documents and their screenshots as PDFs, for screenshot for activity 1, yeah? So, here we go, the next part where it gets exciting. So, we're doing activity 2. So, please, listen carefully. When you do activity 2, doing all these things does not mean you're going to get full marks for activity 2. All these are showing you is what you're going to have to do for activity 4. It's still important for activity 2, these first bullet points, but that's not the primary thing we're doing. The primary thing we're doing are the things down here. So if you're going for full marks, we're going for distinction, we're aiming for the sky. These bullet points will give you an example of the required checks that you need to do if you want to get full marks. So these 6 bullet points will always have an example of what the required check is for presence check, for range check, and for format check. Value lookup, table lookup, length check, you use your own appropriate examples, and I'll explain to you how you can use the appropriate examples, how you can figure out to do that. So I said on these bullet points, there'll be an example for required check, for presence check, for range check, and for format check. So for presence check, which one is it? A record for a player will not save without the player's date of birth being present. That's a presence check right there. So we go to access, we go to the table that has the said field name, player date of birth. The validation rule for presence check is 3 words with spaces: is, not, no. And validation text, you must put the validation text. So this is the error message that you basically want to show the user if they've not provided the data in the field that you're expecting. So here, my validation text might say something like, please provide the player's date of birth to save the record. Yeah. Now, for activity 2, you do not need to show that this works. They do not care for that for activity 2. They just want to see evidence that you've applied the rule correctly. So your screenshot should show the field name that it's been applied to. So this part where it shows the yellow, yeah? That's how we know which field the validation rule has been applied to. So that's where my screenshot is going to start. If you want, it can start from the name of the table. In fact, I'll just do that. So this is my screenshot. So I'm going to do a full page for each check for my screenshots. Yeah. So length check, remember I told you on the paper, you're never going to find an example of what you should do for length check. Okay. So length check, the easiest example I'd recommend for you, anything that has a name. That's a nice simple example. That's a winner to do length check. So for example, player surname, you're never gonna have someone with a surname that's 255 letters, are you? You might have someone that actually has a surname with 30 characters. So here I might put 45. So I'm limiting the number of letters that can be entered for the surname. That's what length check is. I take my screenshot, there we go. In fact, this one I'm just going to finish it over here. So length check, that's my screenshot. So here I've got a choice. I can do value lookup or I can do range check. I'm going to do range check. So range check, so remember on these bullet points you have an example of the required check for present check, range check, and format check. So a record for a player will not save without the player's initial in the correct format. That's an example of the required check for format check. A record for a player will not save if the player is assigned an invalid mentor. That's not range check. These are the range checks. A record for player statistics will not save if the player's rating is below or above the accepted range. Well, what is this accepted range? I know it's between 1 and 3 because I read the scenario. 1 and 5. Okay, I stand corrected. So the rating must be at least 1 and no higher than 5. So that's what I need to do. So I go to the said table that has to do with player rating, player position rating, and this is the validation rule for range check. You type in between and the values. So 1 and 5. That's how you do range check. That's the validation rule. Then the validation text, it's a similar error message like we did for present check. So here I might say player rating must be between 1 and 5. That will be the error message that they get. Yeah. So take my screenshot over here. Boom. Back over here. Right, now we move on to table lookup. You know what? Table lookup, I'm going to do that last because it's a bit more explaining. So we'll do format check next. So we've already read the example for format check, which was to do the player initial being in the correct format. Yeah. A record for a player will not save without the player's initial in the correct format. So we go to the table, we go to the player table, because that's where player initial is. Now for activity 2, let's say activity 1, you messed it up and you have things in the wrong fields and the wrong tables. Like for some reason, you put player initial in the position table. So you might have a question, what if I've put player initial in the position table and this is obviously wrong, but my activity 2 is correct, will I still get the marks? Yes, you still get your marks because getting the things in the wrong table, that's to do with activity 1. They're not going to penalize you and take marks off you and say, that's it, you got activity 1 wrong. We don't care if your validation rules are correct because you got things in the wrong table. We can't give you your marks. That's not how we mark, yeah? So you still get your marks. So correct format. So I click in here where it says input mask. I select the 3 dots. I like to, save, whatever. I click next, then I put the format rule. I'm not covering how to do format rule. I did that in my other video on how to do format check. So it tells us on the scenario about the initial needing to be uppercase over here. Data kept about the player includes their surname and the initial of the first name. The initial must be uppercase. So in activity 2, where it's saying add the validation rule to make sure it's in the correct format, we're saying it needs to be uppercase. So we put the greater than sign and we put a capital L. Then that's it. I click on finish. That's my evidence. This one, to be honest, I only need up to here. And that's format check done. And we're done. I'm joking. I know we still have table lookup. Now, table lookup, it just needs to be applied to any foreign key. Remember, a foreign key is the primary key of another table. So the idea is, when you're using table lookup, the whole idea is, instead of viewing the foreign key, the actual key, the primary key, is we view a different field that's not the ID. That's the whole purpose of table lookup. So instead of seeing mentor ID 2, maybe I want to actually see what the name of the mentor is. Now here's the caveat. Here's the tricky part with table lookup. Table lookup will create a relationship for you. So if you want to use table lookup for mentor ID, like I want to do here, I need to close this table. I need to go to relationship and delete the existing relationship between the player table and the mentor table. Save, close. So remember, whenever you create relationships or you make changes, all your tables need to be closed. So now I can go to the player table. I go to mentor ID. I click this box here. Lookup was it. I want the lookup fields to get the values from another table. I click on next. So this is the table where mentor ID is the primary key. So if you show mentor ID, you're not going to get master table lookup because you're showing the same thing. So I want to see mentor surname instead. Click this box, enable data integrity, then click on finish. So here it's telling you I'm going to create a relationship, as I told you before, and I'll prove it to you. So if I close this table and I go to relationships, you can see it's re-established that relationship. So now when I go to the player table, instead of viewing the mentor ID, it actually shows me the mentor surname. Yeah. So this is your evidence. So to get the evidence for value lookup and table lookup, you click at the bottom where it says lookup over here, and then you take your screenshot. I'm going to do a full one over here. And there we go. I'll resize this so it's on one page. There we go. So folks, that's activity 2 done. Let's see how we are doing on time. So, we're doing extremely well on time, if I do so say myself. We need to save this as a PDF. Because I know on activity 1, they recommend that you spend 45 minutes. So if I'm on 41 minutes with the amount of talking I've been doing, and doing the activity at the same time, I'd say I'm doing quite well on time. So this is activity 2. Save as a PDF. Yeah. Let's move on to activity 3, which is queries. Right, so queries. We know what a query is. A query is you already have data and you're trying to return results that matches a specific criteria. So 3A, let's get this bad boy opened up. This is where we're going to save our evidence. I recommend when you do queries, because queries, particularly as we're going for distinction, as we're going for 4 marks, when we're going to do 3B and 3C, the queries can get quite long. So I always recommend change your page to landscape. That way you can stretch your screenshot and we can clearly see what's going on. So let's go over here. Let's go into Access, Create. We go to Query Design. If you followed other YouTube videos where they use the query wizard and that works for you, that's fantastic. Please use the method that you're most comfortable with. I'm just going to use the figure 1 table. Let's say for some reason, when you did activity 1, you didn't get the 4 correct tables correct. You can still use the figure 1 table and still get marks when you do activity 3. So what do they want for activity 3A? Create a query to display a list of players who have a rating at least 1. Okay. So whenever I do this, I always start with the easiest part, add into the query the fields that they want me to display. So that's what I start off with. So they want me to display the player's surname, their date of birth, the position, so position name, where art thou, position name, where are you, here you are, and the rating. Okay, so create a query to display a list of players who have a rating of at least 1 and no more than 3. So in player position rating, currently when I run, this is the information that I get. I think it's got beef with this font. Yeah, when you change to error, you see how it all shows correctly in the box. Right, so anyway, I digress. So we only want the list of players who have a rating of at least 1 and no more than 3. So we go to here where it says criteria underneath player position rating, and we type in we want greater than 0 and less than 4. Yeah, so have a rating of at least 1 and no more than 3. So now when we click run, these are the results that we get. Yeah, so it must be sorted from youngest to oldest. So the youngest player, the youngest players will be the ones born in 2007. So we actually want to do this as descending. So from youngest to oldest, yeah? So those born in 2005 are obviously going to be older than those born in what? 2007. Is there anything else I missed on here? Always reread your query, please, folks, to make sure that you got it correct, that you're not missing anything out. It can be easy to move fast and you miss the key detail. Okay, I think this is correct. So evidence, design view. So design view, I only need to take a screenshot of this, folks. That's all I need. And datasheet view, that shows the results. So now click run. These are the results. So make sure in your screenshots we can clearly see the results. So in fact, I'm going to sort my font out here because it's cutting out the date. That's not proper. We can't be doing that. There we go. We don't want to lose marks. Yeah. Okay, even the heading here, I'm not happy with that. Let's get that sorted. There we go. And there we go. So if we want to quickly see, does using figure 1 table impact our results and our marks? Let me see if I've got the examiner solution just to show you that it doesn't. Mark guidance, maybe. Here we go. Oh, fantastic. So, okay. That one is not what you want to see. We want to see this. And here we go. Where are the results? 3A. Here we go. Here are the results. Johnson, and you've got Garcia showing twice over here. So as you can see, using the figure 1 table did not impact, the marks that we should be getting. So now we move on to the big boys, the hard queries, yeah? We're moving on to 3B. So let's read carefully. I'm not going to rush it as I did before. Create a query. Which is it, my elbow? It's okay, it's okay. Create a query that will calculate and display the age of the players, the number of players for each age, the number of yellow cards for each age, the highest number of goals for each age. Okay, now this query is a bit more challenging, but nothing that we cannot do. Okay, because we're going for distinction. We're professionals. We're not scared of 3B. We're not scared of 3C. QRY 3B. Figure 1 table. So create a query to display the age of the players. So we need to calculate the age of the players. So I'm going to click in here. I go to builder. I'm going to name this column age and I put a colon. So I'm going to use the function called dateDiff. So when you're doing things like this, where you're calculating the age of something, you use the dateDiff function and you always use the date you're working with and the today's date on when you're completing the assessment. There's a function that you can use to return the today's date. So at the time of this recording, I'm doing this and it's 6 April 2025. So that's the date I'm going to use to calculate the age of each player. Now, obviously, for those students that were doing the paper in that specific year, the age would have been different because they would have been doing it in 2023, January, yeah? So I put comma. That's how you do the interval to get the returning years. The order of dates is important. So I'm going to go to here. I'm going to figure 1. I'm going to add the player date of birth. So the difference between the player date of birth and today's date. If I did the dates the other way around, it would give me a minus age. Okay, so that's how to close the date function, and this bracket is to close the dateDiff function. So currently when I click run, it shows me the age of the players. So the number of players for each age. So I'm going to add player ID. I'm going to click where it says totals and I'm going to select where it says count. So when I click run, it's now showing me the number of players for each age. I'm going to rename this column. So I'm going to rename it. So you put your cursor behind the first letter and you type the name of your column without any spaces, please. So num of players, and you put a colon, just like that. So if you want a space, you put an underscore, as you saw me do here. The number of players for each age, we've done that. The number of yellow cards for each age, the highest number of goals for each age. So if we go over here, number of yellow cards, we're going to use the count function again, and we're going to select sum, which will add the total number of yellow cards for each age. Yeah, sum of yellow cards. You know what, that name is perfectly fine. I'm happy with that. So highest number of goals of each age. For each age, it's not asking us, how many goals were scored for each age. That would be the sum. The highest number, it's like saying for this particular age, this was the player that scored the highest number of goals. Does that make sense? So if we go on the solution here, the highest number of goals is going to be 8. Yeah, like I said, the ages are going to be different because of the time of when I'm doing this. So if I go here, I add player position goals. I select this to max, which will return to me the highest, and we should get 8. Yeah, so we get 8 over here. I'm going to rename this column though. So I click over here. I'll rename this to highest goal count, colon. Done. Click run. And this is query 3B done. Yeah. So here we've got 8 over there, we've got 5 over there, and we've got 6 over here. So there is an odd one with one goal that has a different age. So let's identify. So player ID number 6. Who is player ID number 6? Player ID, so it was between number 6 and number 8. Number 6 and number 8. Yeah, number 6 and number 8. Number 6 and number 8. 2005. 2006. Did this player not score a goal? They did score a goal. 2005. Oh yes, so this is correct. So if I did this in 2025 after May, I would have 4 different results showing up here. Yeah. So the date of birth with this person and this person, it's not going to be too different because we haven't passed over here the May. Yeah. So that's 3B done. So we'll take a screenshot of this. Datasheet view and design view. So in design view, this is why I was saying we need to go into landscape, folks. We need to make sure that we can clearly read what's inside. So I'll need to fully do this. It's going to be a long screenshot, folks. So if you can, when you rename your column, try to make it with as few letters as you can for this said reason, because your screenshot, if you put a long name for your column, your screenshot is going to be very long. Yeah. So now I can do this. Then that should be good. Right, design view. Fantastic. There we go. Was that so hard now? So on 54 minutes, we're doing very good for time here. So let's move on to 3C. Let's move on to 3C. 3C, 3C. We're creating a report. Whatever, right. So, okay, habits. Just stop. Create a report that shows the statistics for each player who has played in more than one position. Display a suitable report title for each player. Display the surname, the initial, the date of birth. Calculate and display the number of positions that player has played in, the best rating that they achieved, and the total number of yellow cards that they have received. So on 3C, you need to create a report. You always create the query first. That's what we need to create, folks. We need to create the query first. So create query design. After we've done everything that we can do from the query point of view, then we move on to the report. So QRY 3C. We add the figure 1 table. Okay, let's switch things about. Have a bit of variety. Why not? So they want me to display the player surname, so I add that to my query. They want me to display the initial, I add that to my query. The date of birth, I add that to the query. The number of positions that they've played in, so position ID. And then here I go to totals and I'm going to do count. So this will then count the number of positions that each player has played. So I'm going to rename this column to number non-positions. Okay, so currently when I click run, it's not, okay, it's actually grouping. So Garcia has played 3 positions apparently. So we could check that quickly. So Garcia is player ID number 3. So if we go in the player stats table, player ID 3 shows up how many times? 1, 2, and 3. So that is correct. The best rating that they achieved, so position rating, and we change this to max. And I'm going to rename that column to best rating. Please never put underscore when you rename your columns. It will cause issues for you. You click run. There we go. The best rating. So the best rating that Garcia ever received was a 4. This is wrong. This is wrong. Why is this wrong? So remember here, they said 1 is the best rating. So player statistics are recorded about the player for each position they play in. For example, they are given a player rating. This rating must be at least 1 and no higher than 5. 1 is the highest rating a player can achieve. So what I needed to actually do here is put min. Okay, so they did achieve a 1 before. Yeah. You see, this is why you should always read your scenario, folks, because it's easy to then make mistakes because you haven't read the scenario. Like that, I just assumed because max, higher is better. But this is the part where we get caught out. Yeah. Back to where we were. So we're on 3C. The total number of yellow cards that they received. So yellow cards, this is going to be a sum, isn't it? The total. And I'm going to rename that column to total yellow cards. Sum. Go over here. Total yellow cards. There we go. We click run. So we can see for Garcia, they played in 3 positions. They got 1, which is the highest rating, the best rating. Total yellow cards, they got 8. Oh, this guy's a beast. 17 yellow cards. He's not playing around. No wonder why their best rating is 4. They should reconsider if they should carry on playing. Anyway, so once we've done all that we can on the query, you close your query, you select it like I've done here, then you go to create and you click report. What it's going to do is going to create a report based on your query, which is exactly what we want. So now it says display a suitable report title. So suitable report title based on the information that it's showing. So here it says create a report that shows the statistics for each player who's played in more than one position. Yeah, so there's something I forgot to do here on my query, so that only shows results of players that played more than one position. So here I put greater than 1. So we should have less names, yeah? We only have 2 players that have played in more than one position. So create and report. Okay, that's fine. We'll sort this out. No. Yeah, so I select here, I go to create and I go to report. There we go, that's better. So player stats. I think this is a suitable report title. Oops, it shows the data. I was trying to hide that. It is what it is. So there's a part here that says the report must fit onto one page. This is important. If it doesn't, you're going to lose marks. How do I know if it fits onto one page? Well, you can see this line here. So obviously if I do this, yeah, it should be very clear. It's gone over the jagged lines or the dashed lines. So it's not going to fit onto one page. So we address this. Now, once you've got this far, you can rename your columns what you want. If you want to put spaces, you can do. And it's not going to break things. You just can't do it when you're renaming the columns on your query. Number of positions, yeah. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So, okay, it's got beef again with Aptos. There we go. Right, is there anything I need to do more here? There's nothing more I need to do here. So this was the easiest 3C that you could actually do. It's ridiculous. The total, yeah. That's it, folks. That's all you need to do. So to save this as a report, we'll type in RPT first, then I'll show you. So 3C. Close that, right click here, go to export, PDF, and that's it. So this one, there's a specific way. You need to name it 3D. Read your paper correctly. I'm reading fast for you. Save your database report, not as a screen print, as a PDF, as activity 3D. Yeah? Why 3D? Because remember, we still have our Word document over here. This still needs to be saved as activity 3. That's why that one is named as activity 3D. So the query we created, we need to put screenshots in design view. So if applicable, add design view and datasheet view screen prints of any queries the report uses. So that's the last thing we need to do. Then activity 4, and then we're done with this walkthrough. I'm not going to do activity 5 because that's evaluation. You need to learn how to evaluate, and if I do it, it's not really going to help because I'll be doing it as a teacher. Yeah. So create query. Oh, sorry, we're not creating anything. Design view. This is going to be a long screenshot. It is what it is. And there we go. Right. That's design view. There we go. Then datasheet view. Run. Oh, you know what? You can do one. Change to aerial. Okay, take a screenshot of this. There we go. Lovely jubbly. So we are done with activity 3. Let's save this as a PDF, shall we? PDF. Click here. Just change this instead of 3D. 3. Yeah. Right. I don't need to save that. Okay, it's looking good. It's looking good. We're cooking. We're doing good. We've got activity 4 now. Yeah, so this is the current state. Maybe I'll create a new folder here. Move these three in here. Yeah. So now just activity 4. So I'm going to write number 1 to 6 because I already know the amount of tests that we have. So type of tests, they've now got rid of this column, but if it reappears again, just type in N for normal test. It's not necessarily correct, but they put on the mark scheme to not penalize students for getting the type of test wrong. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying always put normal. So activity 4, I've done a video on how to do activity 4 where I explain test data, what you're meant to do, what you're not meant to do. If you really want to have a full understanding how to do activity 4, please watch the video on my channel on how to do activity 4. If that video is not there, I could be wrong, my memory may fail me. Please add on the comments to do the video explaining activity 4. Yeah? So I go on my paper. So a record for a player will not save without the player's date of birth being present. So when you do these tests, it's nothing to do with the data that's already in your table. It's you saying, I'm going to add new data to do this test. So test data, I copy the name of the fields, the columns in the table where I need to do the test. So remember, the test is a record for a player will not save without the player's date of birth being present. So I go to the table where this field is, then I'll enter the names of all the columns that I have in that table. So player, initial, player surname, player date of birth, and mentor ID. So now I start to indicate the test data that I'm going to use when I'm doing this test. So their initial is going to be F, their surname is going to be Frosty. So player date of birth, I'm going to put blank. I'm going to type in blank. Why am I typing in blank? Because test number 1, I'm trying to prove a record for a player will not save without the player's date of birth being present. So that's why I'm saying my test data is not going to include the player date of birth to prove that I've applied this validation rule and it works. Enter ID is going to be 2. So always check your table, that you've actually done the validation rule, that it's actually going to work. I've done that, yeah. So I'm going to add my new record, which needs to match the test data that I said I'm going to use. So Frosty, I'll put 2. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna need to change my test data here to say Alan, because I'm using table lookup. So I take a screenshot of my error message. This is my proof. So expected result is what should happen. Okay, I did this in the wrong order. I do apologize. So expected result, an error message, and you should be specific why there's going to be an error message. If you just put error message, that's vague. You're not going to get full marks. An error message stating that the user must provide the player date of birth before the record can be saved. This is where we add the screenshot. Yeah, lovely jubbly. We move on to test number 2. So what is test number 2? A record for a player will not save without the player's initial in the correct format. This is an excellent one. So I'm going to copy this data. So we know from this scenario, you can't have lowercase. It must be uppercase, yeah? So 12/12/2005. So I'm not going to put this in bold because this is not the main test data that were tested. This is the main test data. So expected result here, I'm going to put something, follow me along. There will be no error message, and the test data will not show lowercase letters because the format check rule prevents the user from entering lowercase. I hope that makes sense. So if you remember when we were doing activity 2, we applied this input mask that forces whatever letter you enter to be uppercase. So when I do this, so 99, this is a lowercase d. Yeah? So whatever I do, it's going to change it to uppercase. So that's why I'm saying there'll be no error message. And the test data will not show lowercase letters because the format check rule prevents the user from entering lowercase. So what do I do for my screenshots? I'm going to take this screenshot. Wait, let me enter the other things first. So Frosty, 2005, alarm, yeah. So I'm going to take a screenshot here. I'm going to take 2 screenshots. One that shows this, and the other one that shows, that where I applied my format check rule. There we go. So that's how we evidence that one. Okay, why is it inverting it? There we go. So now we can move on to test number 3. Hopefully it'll be a bit simpler. A record for a player will not save if the player is assigned an invalid mentor. So because we already have relationships, this one is going to be nice and simple. There is nothing you need to do here if you've done your relationships correctly, because this is the test. I'm going to explain it before I fill out my table. So how many mentors do we have here? We've got 2 mentors. So if I try to create a new player and assign them with a mentor ID that says number 3, it shouldn't work. It's going to bring an error message saying this is invalid because the relationship, remember when we tick those boxes to say enforce data integrity, Access is going to tell us you can't add this record because you're missing a required record from the mentor table, which is either a 1 or a 2. Okay, so I'm going to delete this table lookup nonsense because it's annoying me. So I go to lookup here and I change this to text box. There we go. So now I go back over here. I'm going to copy this. So mentor ID, now I'm going to say number 5. So an error message stating that the user must provide a valid mentor ID. So now we can do the test. So here I put in 5. This is the error message. You cannot add or change record because a related record is required in TBL Mentor. And the only required things, it's either I need to enter 1 or 2. So this will be an error message and this is perfectly fine. Yeah. So this shouldn't be bold anymore because this is not the main focus of the test. This one is. In fact, I could do this, can't I? I had my screenshot here. Right, test number 4, a record for a player for player statistics will not save if the player rating is below the accepted range. So remember the range is the rating must be at least 1 and no more than 5, yeah? So I'll go to the player stats table. So, oh, that's a lot of things to enter, my God. Right, so we've got player ID. I'm going to do number 2 or number 3 because position ID. I like number 7, so we'll do number 7. Yellow cards. They're gonna have 10 yellow cards. Goals. They're gonna have 23 goals. Substitutions 2 and rating. So for test number 4, it says will not save if the player rating is below the accepted range. So the only value I can enter here is 0. Test number 5 is if it's above the accepted range. So what I can do here, do that, and change this to 6. So an error message stating that the player rating must be between 1 and 5. So here you can have the same expected result word for word, but your test data must be different, because test number 4 is tested if it's below the accepted range. Test number 5 is tested if it's above the accepted range. Without further ado, so player ID 3, 7, 10, 23, 2, and 0. Yeah. So I need to do this. So I'd said 3, 7, 10, 23, 2, and 0. So take a screenshot of this. Right, we do the other one. So I changed this to, was it 6 I put? Yep, 6. Could have done this, to be honest, but not. And the last test is test number 6. I don't need all these extra rows, so I'll delete them. There we go. So test number 6, a record for play statistics will not save without a valid position. So this is similar to test number 3. So I'm going to copy this data. Yeah. Rating is going to be 2. So position ID, I'm going to put 17. Why am I putting 17? An error message telling the user to provide a required record from the position. Okay, an error message telling the user to provide a valid position ID from the position table. Right. Right, so I'll explain. So if we go here, so this is the test that we did before on test number 3. If a player is assigned an invalid mentor, i.e. if we enter number 3, because there's relationships already and it's enforcing data integrity, it's going to show an error message because mentor ID 3 doesn't exist. So for player stats table, it's exactly the same thing. When we select position ID number 17, it will give us the same error, because in this table there is no such thing as position ID number 17. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So now we can do the test. So what was the player ID? It was number 3. Position ID, we said 17. They had 10 yellow cards, they had 23 goals, 2 substitutions, and I think their player rating, I said number 2. Yeah. And this is our error message. And there we go, folks. This is activity 4, the last screenshot. Yeah. There we go. I save this as a PDF. If you really want me to do a video for activity 5, put comments. Or if I get, if I get 30 likes, I'll do that video on how to do activity 5. Yeah, and activity 8 as well. Okay, so we save this, activity 4. And it's a wrap, and we're done. Right, I hope this video was very helpful. This is 1 hour 20 at the time of recording. This assessment, it's a 3-hour assessment. I've done it in 1 hour 20. You can actually do this faster because I was talking and doing things at the same time and pausing to explain certain stuff. So it is possible to get very good at this, folks. Yeah? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you on the next one.